Hello everyone! Dear students, today we will be reading a play, the Browning version, written by Terence Rattigan. This is chapter 6 from our Hornbill book. This picture shows a program for original Broadway production with Maurice Evans and Edna Best. A play is a piece of writing which can be seen at a theater or on TV or heard on the radio. Plays often show conversation between people. A play is usually watched rather than being read. The people who appear in a play are called the actors. In a theater, they stand on a stage so the people watching, which means the audience, can see them better. A director helps the actors to work better or tells them how he wants the play to be. Plays can be very interesting because they can be understood in many different ways. When the writer, which means the playwright, makes the play, he cannot say how the actors or director will use it. Sometimes the playwright is also the director or an actor. For example, Molière was often an actor in his plays. But the director can change the play in different ways. The actor's costume, the music, how people say things, how they move, or what they hold. There are many sorts of plays, such as tragedy, comedy, and others. We can say that play is a literary form of writing for theater, which narrates a story with elements of conflicts, tensions, and actions through dialogues of characters. The term play can refer to both the written text of playwrights and to their complete performance. For dramatic significance, a play is divided into acts and scenes. The writer presents feelings, emotions, and ideas through the characters, and he makes them speak. We said the writer of a play is called a playwright. Play is intended for performance rather than just reading. At times, writers insert text apart from the actual dialogues of the characters to unfold the description of characters on stage or their psychological intentions. In this way, the writers make their text emotive, lifelike, and thought-provoking. This is our play, the Browning version, written by Terence Rattigan. Some examples of play from literature are, for example, Macbeth from William Shakespeare, or The Merchant of Venice. A play functions as a tool to give one's thoughts through performance in front of the live audience. Writers skillfully feature certain situations to make the audience laugh at funny incidents as well. Sometimes they will feel pity or fear for unfortunate circumstances or incidents. This enables the audience to understand and feel a lot out of less description. Also, it is a convenient way to present different characters and their inner thoughts and feelings. It enables the writers to dramatize the story in a way that events and characters are easily brought to life through a theatrical performance. So, what is the difference between drama and theater? Drama is the printed text of a play, while theater refers to the actual production of the play text on the stage. So, are plays read the same way in which novels are read? A painter speaks directly to his or her audience through the medium of paint on canvas. The composer, however, requires musicians to interpret his or her work. A novel is written in order to be read. Much like the painter, the novelist or poet speaks directly to the reader, in this case with words, not paint. A play, however, is not intended for a reading audience. The playwright knows that his or her work will only be properly received by the audience in a theater, after it has been interpreted by directors, actors, and designers. The actual text of the play is much less than the event of the play. It contains only the dialogue, which means the words that the characters actually say, and some stage directions, the actions performed by the characters. The play, as written by the playwright, is merely a scenario which guides the director, designers, and actors. When reading, we only take in one impression at a time. However, in the theater, we respond simultaneously to the words, the movement of the actors, their expressions, their voices, the silences, the sound effects, the lighting, the scenery, the costumes, the gestures, the groupings of characters, the rhythms, the space, the atmosphere, and so on. All of these elements are carefully selected and united by the author. How does one begin to interpret a play? Well, a play consists of many elements, including characters, action, language, plot, setting, costume, lighting, gesture, and structure. When analyzing a playtest, a theater artist seeks the answer to many questions. This quest leads to an interpretation of the play, an understanding of the intent of the playwright, coupled with a conceptual approach that makes any given production of the play unique. Among the questions asked by the theater artists are the following. Who are the people in the play? What does each character want? What do they do? How do they appear to each other? How do they feel? What does each character know? What is the background of each character? With whom do you identify? What conflicts are there? What values does each character have? What are their relationships? What are their personal traits? Who has power over whom? Some other questions are, what is the world of the play? Where does it happen? When does it happen? What are the circumstances affected by the society, economics, culture, and politics of the time? what do we learn from the setting of the play? Some other questions asked by the theater artists are: how is language used in the play? What is the nature of dialogue? How are literary allusions and imagery used? What are the tempos and rhythms of the play? What is the style of the play? What happens in the play? What is the difference between physical action and psychological action? What is the structure of the play? What techniques does the playwright use? What are the ideas expressed in the play? What is the playwright telling us about the world and ourselves? It is best to read a play in one uninterrupted sitting without any distractions. This, of course, is the way in which the theater audience will eventually experience a play. Before reading the play, study the cast list in order to best understand the relationships of the characters. When reading the play, seek to understand the storyline and to develop a certain view of the play, some reaction to the play. And don't worry about understanding the play. It is only with time, reflection, and repeated readings that the answer to all of the questions can be answered. If necessary, you can look up for words, terms, or expressions with which you are unfamiliar. After completing this reading, write down your first impressions. After some time and thought, additional readings can be very enlightening. Terence Rattigan, the author of our today's play, the Browning version, was born on June 10, 1911 in London. His father, William, was a diplomat and he served in countries such as Turkey and Romania. While his parents lived abroad, Terence and his brother were raised by their grandparents in England. Rattigan was about 11 years old when his parents returned. By that time, he had fallen in love with reading and going to plays. He wrote his first play about the age of 10. Although Rattigan was training for the diplomatic corps by the time he reached Oxford, his interest was focused on the stage. Some of his plays include Flare Path, A Quiet Wedding, The Winslow Boy, the Browning version, The Deep Blue Sea, Separate Tables, and Cause Célèbre. The Browning version is a play by Terence Rattigan. It is seen by many as his best work and first performed on 8th September 1948 at the Phoenix Theatre in London. It is the play that cemented his reputation as a serious, mature playwright. It is viewed as one of his best works and one of the best one acts ever written. This play is one act. First performed at the Phoenix Theatre in London, the Browning version was coupled with another one-act play by Rattigan, entitled Harlequinade, under the umbrella name Playbill. It was originally one of two short plays, jointly titled Playbill. the companion piece being Harlequinade, which forms the second half of the evening. Reviews were enthusiastic, with the play being hailed as a 70-minute masterpiece. The play presents two contrasting schoolteachers, Mr. Frank and Mr. Crocker Harris. This chapter is a short extract from the play, the Browning version. It is a one-act play set in a school, and there are three characters in the play: Tableau, Frank, and Mr. Crocker Harris. In this version from our book, three characters are Tableau, Frank, and Mrs. Crocker Harris. Tableau is a 16-year-old student, a student of lower 5th class. Frank is a young teacher, and Millie is Mr. Crocker Harris's wife. Mr. Crocker Harris is a middle-aged schoolmaster. This one-act play also presents the hidden rivalry among teachers. It also describes the reaction of Tableau, a student of Mr. Crocker Harris, towards his teachers. Tableau, a student, has arrived in the school to do extra work for his teacher, Mr. Crocker Harris. He meets Frank, and they both engage in a conversation while Tableau waits for Mr. Harris. Later enters Millie, Mrs. Crocker Harris's wife, who talks to Tableau. We said the scene is set in a school. Frank is young and Crocker Harris is a middle-aged schoolmaster. Tableau is a boy of 16 who has come in to do extra work for Crocker Harris. He doesn't find him there. Later on comes Millie. She is Mrs. Crocker Harris. She is Mr. Crocker Harris's wife. The Browning version. This is an excerpt from the Browning version. The scene is set in a school. Frank is young and Crocker Harris middle-aged. Both are masters. Tableau is a boy of 16 who has come in to do extra work for Crocker Harris, but the latter had not yet arrived, and Frank finds Tableau waiting. An excerpt means a short extract from writing, movie, music, or an article. It means section or part. This is an excerpt from the Browning version, and the scene is set in a school. Frank is one character. He is young, and Crocker Harris is middle-aged. They are both teachers. Both are masters. Masters here refers to the teachers. Middle-age means past youth, but not old. Tableau is a boy of 16. He is 16 years old, and he has come in to do some extra work for Crocker Harris, Mr. Crocker Harris, who is his teacher. But the latter means Mr. Crocker Harris. but the ladder had not yet arrived. Ladder means the one who comes after, denoting the second mentioned person of the two people. It means occurring or situated nearer to the end of something rather than to the beginning. For example, we can say the latter half of 2019. So Frank finds Tableau waiting. Tableau is a student. He has come to do some extra work for Crocker Harris. He doesn't find his teacher there, Mr. Crocker Harris, but after some time comes Frank. Frank is a young science teacher. He finds Tableau waiting. Now Frank and Tableau are engaging in a conversation. Frank asks him, "Do I know you?" "No, sir." "What's your name?" "Tableau." "Tableau?" "No, I don't." "You're not a scientist, I gather." "No, sir, I'm still in the lower fifth. I can't specialize until next term. That's to say, I've got my remove all right." "Don't you know if you've got your remove?" "No, sir. Mr. Crocker Harris doesn't tell us the results like the other masters." Here, meeting Tableau waiting, Frank engages in a conversation with Tableau. Tableau is not his student. Frank asks him, "Do I know you? What's your name?" "No, I don't know you." Then he says, "You're not a scientist, I gather." Together means to understand. I suppose you are not a scientist. Together means to form an opinion or reach a conclusion through reasoning and information. So he says, "I don't think you are a scientist." Tableau answers him, "No, sir, I'm in the lower fifth. I can't specialize until next term. That's to say, if I've got my remove all right." Remove means a division. It means a result or a promotion. Lower fifth means in lower fifth standard. So Frank saw Tableau and asked his name, and he asked him in which class he studies. Tableau answered him, and he told him that he studies in the lower fifth standard and he cannot specialize until he gets his division, his remove. So Frank asks him whether he got the remove or not. And Tableau replied that his master, Mr. Crocker Harris, doesn't reveal any information like the other masters do. He said, "No, sir, Mr. Crocker Harris doesn't tell us the results like the other masters." "Why not?" "Well, you know what he's like, sir. I believe there is a rule that form results should only be announced by the headmaster on the last day of term." "Yes, but who else pays attention to it except Mr. Crocker Harris?" Here, Frank asked if Mr. Crocker Harris reveals the information earlier. Tableau tells him that he already knows how Mr. Harris is. Frank supposes that there is a rule that the form result should be revealed on the last day of the term. Form results. Form here means class of school. They should be announced by the headmaster on the last day of term. Term means fixed or limited period of school year. Tableau tells him, yes, but who else pays attention to it except Mr. Crocker Harris? To pay attention means to bother. Who else bothers? Only Mr. Crocker Harris bothers. I don't, I admit, says Frank. But that's no criterion. So you've got to wait until tomorrow to know your fate, have you? Tableau answers him, yes, sir. Supposing the answer is favorable, what then? Asks Frank. Oh, science, sir, of course. Frank says sadly, yes, we get all the slackers. Here we see that Mr. Frank doesn't believe in observing formalities. Like other teachers, Tableau says, he also doesn't care much about rules and regulations. However, Mr. Crocker Harris follows rules very strictly. In this regard, he is different from other teachers. He never leaks out results till they are formally announced. Here we can see that Mr. Frank is taking interest in Tableau, who is not his student. His long conversation with Tableau reveals his open nature. Mr. Frank is young, more social, and quite open to his students, while Mr. Crocker Harris is middle-aged and reserved. He doesn't mix up with his students. He maintains a respectable distance with them. Mr. Crocker Harris is feared as a hard taskmaster, but he is also respected. He has a wonderful hold over his students. Now Frank is asking Tableau, supposing the answer is favorable, what then? Favorable means suitable, something that favors, something approving or beneficial. Tableau answers him, sir, science, of course. And Frank says, we get all the slackers. Slackers means idlers, those who don't work hard, lazy students who are not motivated. Frank is telling him, we get all the unmotivated students. Tableau answers him protestingly, I'm extremely interested in science, sir. Protestingly means opposingly. He's showing disapproval. And he's saying, no, sir, I am extremely interested in science. And Frank says, are you? I'm not at least in the science I have to teach. Mr. Frank is not interested in his subject. Well, anyway, sir, it's a good deal more exciting than this muck, indicating his book. Tableau is telling him, sir, it is much more exciting than this muck. Muck means something useless, something which is of no good, something which is of no use. Muck refers to rubbish, dirt, mud, or filth. So Tableau is telling Frank that it's a good deal more exciting, that the science is much more exciting than this muck, as he calls it. Exciting means thrilling, and while saying this, he is indicating his book. To indicate means to point out, to show. Frank says, "What is this muck?" And Tableau answers, "Aeschylus, sir, the Agamemnon." And Frank asks him, "And you consider the view is that the Agamemnon is muck? You want to say that the Agamemnon is muck?" Aeschylus was an ancient Greek dramatist who is referred to as father of tragedy. Frank is asking, "Do you think that Agamemnon is muck? You think it is useless?" Agamemnon is a play written by Aeschylus. And Frank is asking him, "Do you think it's useless?" And Tableau replies, "Well, no, sir, I don't think the play is muck, exactly. I suppose, in a way, it's rather a good plot, really. A wife murdering her husband and all that. I only meant the way it's taught to us. Just a lot of Greek words strung together and 50 lines if you get them wrong." Here Tableau is explaining why he said that Aeschylus's Agamemnon is useless. He says, well, in a way it is, but it has a good plot, really. Plot is the storyline. In a narrative or creative writing, a plot is a literary term that stands for the sequence of events that make up a story. An author puts together a series of events to create a story. He continues saying that it is difficult the way it is taught to us. It's just a lot of Greek words strung together. Strung together means bound or woven. It means to combine different things into something useful. Something complete. You could say, see if you can string the theories together into something that makes sense. Strung is past from verb string, to string together. Here Frank asks Tableau about what remove is he interested to take further, and he replies science. So Frank tells him that they have some lazy students in science, to which Tableau clarifies that he is really interested in the subject. That is why he wants to take it. Frank tells him that he himself is not interested in science, at least in the science that he is teaching, the science which he has to teach in the school. Tableau thinks that the subject that Frank teaches is still a good deal than the book he is currently reading. Upon asking about the book, Tableau tells him about the name of the author and the book. Aeschylus, Agamemnon. So Tableau further shares his view about the Agamemnon. He thinks the plot is good, he thinks the storyline is good, but the way the Greek words are thought to them, combined together, is useless. Frank continues by saying, "You sound a little bitter, Tableau." You sound means you appear, you look a little bitter. Bitter in a sense of displeased, unpleased, or resentful. Tableau answers him, "I am rather, sir." He says, "Yes, I am indeed." Frank asks him, "Captain, huh?" Captain means detained after the class as a punishment in school. It means to make someone stay in a place. And especially it refers to detainment in school as a form of punishment. So Tableau is asking him, "Captain, have you been punished? Have you received any punishment? Have you been kept in?" And Tableau says, "No, sir, extra work." Frank asks him, "Extra work on the last day of school?" Tableau says, "Yes, sir, and I might be playing golf. You'd think he'd have enough to do anyway himself, considering he's leaving tomorrow for good. But oh no, I missed a day last week when I was ill. So here I am, and look at the weather, sir." Frank is surprised that Tableau has some work on the last day of school, some extra work. For good means forever. He is leaving tomorrow for good, forever. For good means forever. Tableau says, "Yes, sir, I might be playing golf as well. You'd think he'd have enough to do anyway. Himself, you would think he already has enough work, considering he's leaving tomorrow for good, forever. But oh no, I missed a day last week when I was ill, so here I am, and look at the weather, sir." Now we have seen that on criticizing the book, Frank tells Tableau that he is sounding a little bitter about Mr. Crocker Harris. Further, Frank asks him if he is staying in school as a punishment, to which Tableau replies that he is in the school on the last day of the term due to extra work. He was ill last week, due to which he was absent for a day, for which he is compensating now by doing extra work. He further says that he feels that Mr. Harris also has extra work himself, because he is leaving tomorrow for good. Harris didn't have any extra work, and yet, with such a good weather, he has to come to school. He also adds that he wanted to play golf at that moment. Frank replies, "Bad luck. Still, there's one comfort. You're pretty well certain to get your remove tomorrow for being a good boy in taking extra work." Here Frank comforts him by saying that he will get his remove tomorrow due to the extra work he's doing for Mr. Harris right now. Comfort means a consolation. He says to Tableau, "You're pretty well certain." Pretty well means quite. You are quite certain to get your remove tomorrow. Tableau continues by saying, "Well, I'm not so sure, sir. That would be true of the ordinary masters, all right. They just wouldn't dare not to give a chap a remove after he's taking extra work. But those sort of rules don't apply to the Croc, Mr. Crocker Harris. I asked him yesterday outright if he'd given me a remove, and do you know what he said, sir?" Frank says, "No. What?" Here, Frank comforts him by saying that he will get his removed tomorrow for doing the extra work. Tableau is unsure of this and tells him that this might work for other teachers, but not for Mr. Harris. Mr. Crocker Harris is different. He doesn't give a student a remove for doing extra work. Tableau also asked Mr. Harris about his remove, to which he gave him an astonishing answer. Ordinary means any other. Any other teacher would do that, but not Mr. Crocker Harris. A chap is a person who you know or whom you like. It means a fellow or a guy. It means a boy or a man who is a friend, acquaintance, or a friendly stranger. Here, a chap is being used for a student. So Tableau tells him, Mr. Croc, as he calls him, Mr. Crocker Harris is different. Those rules don't apply to him. Yesterday I asked him outright. Outright means straight. I asked him if he'd given me a remove, and do you know what he said, sir? After Frank asks, "Know what?" Tableau starts imitating his teacher, Mr. Crocker Harris. He's imitating a very gentle, rather throaty voice. To imitate means to copy, to mimic. He's imitating him in a very gentle, rather throaty voice. Throaty means that comes out of throat. It means rough or heavy. Now he's imitating his teacher. My dear Tableau, I have given you exactly what you deserve, no less and certainly no more. This is Tableau's imitation of Mr. Crocker Harris. Do you know, sir, I think he may have marked me down, rather than up, for taking extra work. I mean, the man's hardly human. He breaks off quickly. Sorry, sir, have I gone too far? Now, after Frank asks him what Mr. Harris told him about his remove, Tableau imitates Mr. Crocker Harris, and he told him exactly what his master answered him. Mr. Harris told him that he will get what he deserved, nothing less and nothing more, and Tableau feels that he might have marked him down for taking this extra work, because he doesn't have human feelings. He says, the man's hardly a human. Frank tells him that his imitation is not close to Mr. Harris's way of saying things, and he told him to read this book. Let's see, what did Frank reply? How did he react to the imitation? To the imitation of Mr. Crocker Harris. Here, to break off means to stop. He suddenly stopped talking and he said, Sorry, sir, have I gone too far? Did I overreact? And Frank tells him, Yes, much too far. Tableau says, Sorry, sir, I got carried away. Carried away means swept away, risen to a high degree of emotion or enthusiasm. To get carried away means to get excited and lose control, to lose self-control, or to become overly excited or to take things too far. Frank says evidently. Evidently means clearly. He picks up a newspaper and opens it, and he says, Tableau. And Tableau says, yes, sir. What was that Crocker Harris said to you? Just, repeat it, would you? Here, Frank is asking Tableau to repeat his imitation. Frank asks him to repeat what he just said about Mr. Harris, and he starts imitating him again. Tableau is imitating again and saying, My dear Tableau, I have given you exactly what you deserve, no less and certainly no more. Frank is looking severe, and he says, not in the least like him. Read your nice Aeschylus and be quiet. Hearing him imitating again, Frank tells him that this imitation is not close to Mr. Harris's way of saying things and he should be quiet. He should read his book. Tableau, with dislike, says, Aeschylus.